So we're back in with another developer stream recap for Marvel's Avengers, so you most likely know the drill by now, so let's dive in and let's break all this down. So we have here the Reddit recap by Billy, so I'll quickly run through this before we get into the actual stream recap. So there's a patch next week for a bunch of fixes. That broken Black Panther gear piece is getting nerfed. That's a gear piece that does 10 times damage, so it's not getting nerfed, it's getting fixed because it is broken. You've got Thor's MCU skin cape, that'll be fixed. There'll be a new daily and weekly mission chain to get some resources, that's interesting. There'll be a surprise in the patch, but they can't say, so who knows what that could be. They're always mixing their efforts to add to existing content and making new. That was in regards to old heroes getting new skills. I don't really see that happening. I know I've talked about it before, but yeah, new heroes are more important. We have the next endgame content. It's taken a lot of what they've learned into account and will be good for people looking for a challenge. That should be the Wakanda OLT, as far as I'm aware. If you're used to just flying past enemies and staying safe in the air, you're going to have a hard time in the next OLT. Not quite sure what that's meaning. You can expect more villain team-ups in the future. Sounds interesting. The Horde mode could become something more. They built content and what we like. If there's demand for more, we'll definitely try to do it. The Horde mode is really fun, so hopefully they do develop it further. They have plans to make the whole gear situation better. Thank God, hopefully they do, and you'll get some ideas of this in the next roadmap. They'll dive into the details in the short term once the roadmap is released, and then for the cosmetic vendor you'll get some updates and changes in the short term. I'm kind of sick of hearing about the cosmetic vendor, to be honest. They're breaking down the cosmetic rework into different areas now, and you'll get some answers in the short term and some for the long term, whatever that actually means. We've got one more page on the Reddit recap from Billy, so let's actually check that out. Next up here, it states they have discussed about letting people disable some things like the visual effect of Jarvis Bagger. This is very much needed. It's annoying to spend $14 on a costume, then you can barely see it. And then Phil said the next endgame content you're about to play, so Billy's taken that to mean that it's coming soon, but hey, who knows what soon means. There will more than likely be new team takedowns in the future. It's something that doesn't really bother me too much, to be honest. They'll talk about Spider-Man soon. Everything is about the roadmap right now. There will be a lot more to discuss once they reveal the new roadmap. So I imagine Spidey will be on it, and they'll possibly have a PlayStation version of the roadmap, I would imagine. And then regarding updating older heroes, Phil said it's a possibility, it's not something we've announced. There's always a balance between what we want to add and what we want to modify. Now, the only tuning they've made in the last 11 months to any heroes was nerfing Hulk. So I just don't see this happening at all. I just don't think they have the resources to look back. Everything's always about looking forward, and an example of that is the champion system, which is actually up next year, like get released broken, and they've not had a chance to look back and actually fix it. But in regards to the champion system, it says they could make updates to the champion system. It just depends if that's something people want. Of course people want it, they must know that by now. We've all talked about how broken it actually is. And then they are talking about changing the Sonic effect on screen. That's very much needed. They haven't announced a join-in option, but it's something they'd like to do. That's very much needed for patrol mode and longer mega level threats. You don't want to spend 3 hours on one and then you drop for your network reasons or whatever and then you can't get back in. And then finishing up, Phil said he's super stoked for the anniversary of the game, but he didn't give any specific details about it. So that's the recap from Billy. So we now have the stream condensed. It was about an hour long or so, but I got it down to about 15-20 minutes. So enjoy this and thanks for tuning in. Stay safe and I'll see you all again soon.
Yeah, also I can tell you guys, so there's a patch that's coming next week. So it's going to fix a bunch of little things, but specifically, I know some of you are going to be bummed about this, but there's some gear that may or not be doing insane amounts of damage, so that's getting adjusted. And it's always scary when we talk about adjustments, but you know it's way too good. You know what you're doing. The Black Orb issue with the Vibranium effects getting fixed too. I know there's some Thor MCU cape clipping issues that are getting fixed. We're also adding a new daily and weekly mission chain that's going to let you get some resources in multiplayer, so that's some cool stuff. And there might be a surprise in that patch. I'm not allowed to say anything else. Andy was very specific. It's like, don't make him in trouble. So, but stay tuned. That might be something that you're excited about in there. So I would keep an eye out for that next patch. Oh, yeah. So somebody was asking, roadmap we're still working on. So it is a matter of I don't want to say soon because I know how much you guys love that one, but it's really not far off. We're just settling on a couple of final details, but it's happening very, very shortly. There you go. I didn't say soon. Well, the roadmap is really where we're going to talk about the upcoming content. So that's really when those updates are coming. I will tell you that we're always looking at mixing our efforts between adding to what's there and adding new, and that's a balance that you're going to see from us, moving forward. So I can't go into a lot of those details until the roadmap's out, but I think you guys will be stoked when you see what's coming up. That's for sure. I will tell you that while we absolutely love what we did with Crossbones and KLAW, we're not doing the same thing in our KLAW LT that we've talked about. So the endgame content, isn't a copy of that fight. So it's something different, right? So I can tell you that some of those questions you're going to get answered when we get the roadmap out. So I can't talk about them just yet. But we do have plans. I can at least say this much: like, we have plans to make the whole gear situation better. It's going to happen in stages. I know I've been talking about this for a long time. It's absolutely happening. It's not all going to happen at once, but we're looking at all aspects of gear. So the idea that some of the gear gets outdated, the idea that some of the gear isn't exactly what you'd want, the difficulty of getting it, the meaningfulness of getting it, that's even a word. It's kind of like a lot of different things put together. And again, I wish I could be super specific, but until the roadmap comes out, I'm not going to go into details. Once it does, though, then absolutely, we're going to dive into details. Like, you're going to have people like, you guys have already talked a couple times with Mike McTire. So we'll have him come on. Like, we'll probably do a blog, some streams. We'll talk about those details. So we're going to dig into these things, like, in the short term. We just need to make sure that we've got the roadmap out first, and then we'll go into details. So we're not being, evasive just for the fun of it. It's things we're going to talk about. So it's still absolutely something that we want to do. And I'll answer it this way. Like, we certainly want the game to have a more meaningful gear loop in the way that, you would want a certain type of gear to do some content. And that sort of feature would really help facilitate that. So, knowing our high level intentions, that gives you an idea of how interested we are in doing this, which is very much so. Again, I wish I could go into a lot more details about that, but it certainly fits in our current vision for what the gear and how the content plays is. So, yeah, we're gonna have some updates on that short term. Some of it is gonna be, on this side of the year, and some of it is gonna be, for eventually. So, I know it's probably not gonna cover everything that everybody wants to see, but cosmetics is actually there's actually a lot of things that tie into that. So I'm trying to tell you guys as much as I possibly can here. We're looking into multiple aspects of the cosmetics. Some of it is the vendors, some of it is the skin, some of them is what you get in game, right? So there's a lot of different aspects to it. So some of those aspects we're going to talk about soon. Some of them are going to be for a little bit later. So that's basically what I'm, kind of circling around. So is it coming? Yes, but the cosmetic update is sort of like a catch-all for a whole lot of different topics right now. So I think what we're going to do, just to make the conversation better, both for us and just for you guys, is we're going to break down what we used to call that cosmetic upgrade into different topics, and then that way you'll know exactly what's coming and what we can talk about, so it'll be easier. Okay. It's a possibility. It's certainly the kind of place that would be well suited to have a faction. We haven't announced anything along those lines yet, but that's something that could happen in the future.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you can talk about that.
That could happen. We haven't announced anything, but that's certainly a possibility. So being able to control how many companions you bring with you. It's something. It's not something that we've announced, but it's something that we've talked about, and it's something that I'd like to do. Certainly, I understand the desire to do that, to either go, by yourself or with some specific amount of companions. So I would consider that something that we're seriously investigating.
Okay, cool.
No, not today. That's not something that we've announced, but we certainly have heard the request for that many times, loud and clear. I can promise you that.
100%.
It's a possibility. I mean, it's something that we've talked about, and we've certainly seen the feedback. So you never know with these things, but we've absolutely gotten that feedback. Same thing with people asking, with ways to turn off various things. Like we've heard that feedback. So we'll let you guys know when those features happen, if they happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we love team takedowns. The more we can have, the better. So will there be more in the future? More than likely is the best answer I can give you right now.
Chad, he can't talk about Spider-Man, Chad. I seen it. He can't talk about Spider-Man.
I wish I could, but we'll talk about Spider-Man soon. It's all about the roadmap, guys. Like once the roadmap comes out, then we'll be able to talk about more content, and we'll go from there. So after the roadmap, we'll have a lot of good conversations about what's on there, what isn't on there, what's coming, what's not coming. So just be a little bit more patient. We're not far off. So part of the conversation and the design that's happening around improving the gear is definitely about making sure that when you do something like an Omega level threat, that you're getting an appropriate reward, and it's something that, I don't want to say like predictable in the sense of you know exactly what you're getting, but predictable in the sense of you should expect a certain payout for doing a certain type of content, right? And I think the way that we're looking at doing things in the future is that you should feel a lot more rewarded for doing these things, and then there should still be things to keep going after. So it's hard to talk about without going into details, so I'm not being evasive on purpose, but I can tell you that we're looking at changing the way that we're doing it right now. So I guess the way you could look at it is, currently right now you're like, there's not a guarantee that you'll get an exotic all the time, and then even if you do, it might be something that you're really not interested in. We're trying to shift that a little bit more towards more predictability on those two fronts without making it trivial, right? So it's all about rewarding you for the time that you invest and making sure that you're making good gear choices. So that's the direction, and I get that it's vague, but we'll be able to talk about the details once we get closer to releasing those features. It's a possibility. I mean, it always depends on what we get out of it and the feedback and its role in the game at any given time. So the team that's working on gear is definitely looking at how that interacts with the champion system. So I don't have any specific things I could call out today that are changing, but we're always evaluating what benefit it gives in the game. I will say that there's a lot of learnings for us around how we present in UI sort of like that information, right? Because I know that some of these things ended up being a little bit misleading because of percentages and damage numbers and things of that nature. So we totally understand that some of that stuff ended up being, I guess it was disappointing for some people because they expected different things, by the way that data was displayed. So and you might just be, hey, I loved it, or hey, I hope it was something different. I totally get that. So a big learning for us is how we present that and how much of an impact it has. So I don't have any changes that I can talk about today, but certainly that's something we take into consideration. It's not a feature that we've announced, but it's something that we'd like to do. We certainly understand the desire for it. So if it's something that we end up doing, we'll certainly make sure to let everybody know, because that's sort of something that would improve the game.
Or no?
I mean, it's going to be about the same answer I was giving you earlier about us looking into the gear moving forward. We want players to be able to make better choices and to have more flexibility. So what form that takes is something that we're going to communicate on when we get closer to having those features. But I would say, we played a game too. I mean, we've been, listening to your feedback. So I think you're going to be excited to hear the changes that are coming. It's really just a matter of we need to get closer to that content being released, and then we'll be able to talk about specific details. But gear is going to get some improvements. You just have to be a little bit patient, and we'll go into a lot of details as soon as we can. Yeah, I can't give any details about anything, but I am super stoked for the anniversary, especially looking back at all the time since the game launched and how things have evolved and how the community's evolved and all the things that we have done and the things that we will be doing. It's exciting. It's a big milestone, and it's certainly, I'm looking forward to talking with you guys about our plans, now and for later. So Yeah, I wish I could give you guys more details, but it's awesome. I mean, even I know we've had some tough spots, but I still love the game. I'm still super excited to work on it. I'm still excited to work on it in the future, right? So it's yeah, it's good times, especially with the release of Wakanda. I mean, it's such a positive event that looking forward to more of those moments.